Okay.
I guess we're live.
Oh, jeez. Just give me a little bit more notice next time.
Sorry.
Nah, I'm kidding. All right, so Brohealio, we've been off for like a month or something.
We have been busy.
Yeah, life happens.
Yeah, it sure does.
Anyways, we're gonna talk about today how to recognize what we feel and why we may be experiencing certain things and we might not understand it. You know, anger, anxiety, and all that. It can stem from places we don't suspect because we deny how we feel in certain situations because of how men are supposed to appear.
Yeah.
Their expectations of, I mean, every boy or
Certainly,
guy.
yeah, certainly if you're in the, because I mean, not all men are doing this, certainly.
No, but at every point in a man's life,
they're-
somebody's heard man up.
Sure.
You gotta man up. You gotta stuff your feelings down, and you gotta keep going.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So it's not every man that does
it's
that,
a
but
part
every
of
man
the
hears it.
social
Culture,
socio-culture, yeah.
and gender norms and all that stuff. So, if you don't recognize what you're feeling, your responses are gonna be all over the map. You can get sad and then start punching things, and you realize, oh, I'm angry.
Yeah.
Are you though? Are you really angry, or you're sad and you just can't show sadness, so you just get angry because that's the only way it can escape.
The only outlet you have.
Mm-hmm. So that's why I think I've read a lot about how depression...
Denial of feelings turns into like anything, man. Well, so many negative things.
I mean, when you keep a lid on something, it'll pop up somewhere else. It's like a game of whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
So you just kind of have to accept that you're going to feel things when you feel them, and you shouldn't, try and stuff them down.
Yeah.
In points of emergency, yes, you need to be able to put aside stuff, but then you have to come back to it. You have to deal with it. Yeah. You can't just say, oh yeah, no, I was unaffected. It's bullshit. You were affected. You have it so stuffed deep down that
you gotta unpack your feelings eventually. Can't cover them up forever, or else they will explode in some way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Definitely, probably that is relevant for me when it comes to being sick when I was a kid. They're telling me, people would tell me, oh, you gotta eat, you gotta stay healthy, and I'm just like, I'm nauseous all the time because I was on dialysis, and it was just. Yeah. Everything was unpleasant, and people get on your case, and it's just making you worse and worse. So I definitely hid stuff in to get people to shut up about it. So I keep stuff bottled up because I don't want other people to comment on something that honestly they have no context for.
Yeah.
They don't know what I'm going through.
Yeah.
So I shouldn't be listening to their advice. It is...
Offering advice is risky business.
True, because you're offering it from your point of view, and, that's not necessarily where the receiver of said advice is coming from, so it might not help.
Yeah.
But talking is always helpful.
Yeah. I think there is, an acceptable way to offer advice, but then there's also ways which do more damage than good.
Yeah, especially... when it's more unsolicited.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you ask for help and, somebody gives you help and it doesn't work. Well, yeah, it happens, but you're just looking at your food and someone's like, why aren't you eating?
And there are certain things, certain methods of giving advice where it doesn't do any good. Because rather than saying, you need to finish your journey. Mm-hmm. So let's say, just in general, somebody's on some sort of a long journey. Somebody's going to give them advice. And what are they going to say? Oh, you should finish? Mm-hmm. It's like, no, of course I know I need to finish. It's not good advice.
True, but
they need to be saying things like, oh, don't step on that log because it's actually an alligator. It's like, oh, thanks. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but
I know that's kind of vague, but it's just like, I guess what I'm getting at, there's definitely advice which doesn't help. It's more of a hindrance.
Yeah, there's advice that helps, there's advice that's neutral, and then there's advice that's harmful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's like you got to take your next step forward. I'm like, well, duh. Well, what does that look like?
Right.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, so you really got to understand where somebody is coming from if you're trying to give them advice, especially if they're
Yeah.
in a very difficult spot because it's like if somebody's had horrible anxiety to where it cripples them, and somebody who's never really having anxiety and gives advice, you just don't understand the
Yeah.
context.
Yeah. 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 For sure.
It's like mansplaining.
Yeah. Oh, you hate to see it.
You hate to see it.
I see it a lot
you
at work.
don't understand it. What
Yeah.
mansplaining or just giving people stupid advice in general.
Yeah. I take that back. I don't see it at work.
No.
I'm talking about work.
There you go. We'll bleep that out later.
Yeah. But we're live streaming.
Uh-oh. I know.
Yeah. We have 0 watchers.
Yeah, so we'll be fine. We'll just edit it out later.
Yeah.
Anyways, so what is other instances of, definitely like that don't cry nonsense
Oh yeah. So yeah.
as a kid is really, really harmful
Don't
to
cry.
dudes as in general.
It's always. I don't know. I feel like I remember, being struck as a child and
Yeah.
crying, and then, the disciplinarian person saying,
Mm-hmm.
"Don't cry."
And
And it's like,
you just smacked me. Of
you
course,
just-
I'm gonna
yeah.
cry.
yeah,
So yeah,
Be
it was
harder.
Just man up.
yeah, don't feel it.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's probably like the first instance of how.
Yeah, things are different these days, though.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. You're
Right.
not gonna do that,
I'm not.
and you're not gonna tell your son not to cry. I mean, unless it's excessive in
No.
a public setting.
I
He's
have.
like,
Well, no, I have said stop crying before.
mm-hmm,
But it's not like I'm shouting at him.
mm-hmm,
I'm just suggesting that his efforts of communicating and his methods of communication
mm-hmm.
are doing nothing, so he should change tactics and switch it up. And so
Yeah, I guess that's
nowadays,
different.
and also so we're actively saying it's okay to feel, and we're having conversations about our feelings,
Mm-hmm.
and it's okay to be sad or mad or glad, which is one of my favorite Dr. Seuss rhymes.
Or bad.
These days.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. Hop on. No, this one is one. I think that's one fish, two fish,
Three fish.
red
blue,
fish, blue fish.
Red fish, blue fish.
Yeah, and then they talk about the sad fish and the mad fish and the glad fish. And so things are moving towards a different
Different normal.
different norm, to where it's more acceptable and actively promoted to talk about your feelings.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think it's.
But from when we grow up, that certainly wasn't the norm.
No, I don't think it
and-
was the norm for our parents either.
No, I don't think so.
And so, we get this thing where we don't talk about it because, it's like any skill. Dealing with your emotion is something that has to be practiced. It's not just that you can understand it and then you're, the
True.
master of your emotions.
True, absolutely.
That's not how it works.
The first insight into your emotions isn't going to be a complete understanding.
No.
You got to flex those muscles for a while, and you may never ultimately have a complete chart of your emotions, but understanding where you are in the general landscape of things is quite beneficial. Because, just like you were saying earlier, or on the topic of understanding your feelings, getting to the root cause is key.
Mm-hmm.
Especially for people who are anxious or depressed or just want to know more about how their subconscious operates, because a lot of that is happening subconsciously. And so...
Well, yeah, because you shoved it back there because
Yeah,
you
you
learned
buried
to
it.
repress it.
It's
So
under.
it's all happening
all
below
gone.
the surface and punching out somewhere
It's
else.
punching out.
That anger isn't necessarily anger. That's sadness, or
Yeah.
that's jealousy, or that's what. It's just,
You got to get down to the root cause.
yeah. I
Right.
think Yeah, it's you got to figure out what it is. I have anxiety all the time,
Yeah.
and I'll just be walking about, and I'll just have a vague sense of like dread, and then I'm like,
Yeah.
why?
Yeah.
And I have no reason to give you for it.
Yeah. Um it's not all cerebral, right?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely there is some pain and some angst and depression which is held in the body outside of the mind, because
Mm-hmm.
it's like the body is the container holding on to all those waves that are created from that are happening through your mind,
Mm-hmm.
essentially. So um f-
Oh,
just
pain.
being able to know though that you're having those feelings is also a different viewpoint, like understanding those signs in your body to then
Mm-hmm.
help you get maybe change your mind space to either help change your situation, or then you just change whatever you can, whatever is available for you within your body to change those feelings as well.
Or just understand that this is something you're feeling, and there just is no way around it. You just have to feel it, and then it'll pass.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, denying it shoves it aside, and it just keeps
Denying
wanting.
it will only make it return and likely to come back stronger.
Mm-hmm.
Accepting the feeling is really the only way that you can decrease tension there. Like, so you can accept for now and just let it be, and then also at the same time, hopefully take some action to decrease or maybe rebalance the overall situation. Because there's normally, in most cases, something that we can do to decrease our levels of anxiety. I
Mm-hmm.
know that there are cases and times in which
Well, I'm
we
talking
feel
about
like it's impossible.
not necessarily the anxiety itself, but whatever you're feeling or denying feeling that's causing the anxiety or
Yeah,
the anger. So you realize by denying the sadness or the, helplessness or whatever you feel, you're pushing,
yeah, you're just delaying healing. You
you're
got to heal,
pushing
move on.
into unnecessary outburst or unnecessary stress. So you're getting that anxiety not because necessarily there's something producing anxiety. You're getting the anxiety because you're not dealing with your sadness
Yeah,
or
yeah,
your,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah, no, it's like you are not the depressed thing. There is depression, it's being held on to, but that's not you. So then once you deal with it, you can get back to your clean state. Just when those threads are just constantly going, it
mm-hmm,
feels like it's you, and then so you get attached to it.
mm-hmm. Yeah, so I would just try and think about what allows people, men, to more talk about what is bothering them to develop those muscles and those, the knowledge in order to deal with these things in a healthy manner and not, have this shit where you're, stressing other people around because, when you're around somebody who's stressed, you can feel it.
Oh yeah,
I'm sure you felt it off of me every once in a while.
yeah. Not only you, I get it from other people too. I can tell when people are stressed. Everyone can tell when you're
Mm-hmm.
stressed, or not everyone, but
No,
people
I
who are
mean,
people who know your natural state
mm-hmm.
and then can see how you're behaving versus your natural state. They are positioned to understand.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch me walk about, you'd never know there's anything wrong with me.
Yeah,
But yeah, if you know me and you know about how I interact with people and you see me changing, you know there's something going
yeah.
on. But also,
Sometimes you can hear it in their voice too.
true, depends on how people hold their anxiety or
Yeah,
depression at any given moment. Sometimes you won't hear it in my voice, but I'll just withdraw from people and I won't
yeah,
talk to people as much, or I'll be more pessimistic when I, you know, discuss things and I won't be excited about doing anything.
certainly.
So yeah, those are hard things to do. Or maybe I'll snap at people. I don't think I really snap at you, but I've snapped at people.
Yeah, it happens from time to time. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like, yeah, sometimes it just manifests in that way where you can't be reasonable and you just like you're just a little crappy to someone.
Well, yeah, you can't be 100%. Well, 99% of people can't be perfect every time. So,
Yeah.
everybody gives some leeway. But when you're, you know,
When you're
being,
not feeling well, it's really difficult to be your best self. Almost impossible.
well, yeah, when you're
You
not
know.
feeling well, when you're not doing well, that's
Yeah.
why anxiety is tough because you're obviously not doing well. So, you can't be as good to other people because you're not in the best
Yeah.
state. You can't give
Yeah.
to
Which is
others
why
what you don't have.
it's. I mean, to me, it's important to give everyone grace to a certain degree, but I feel like it's important to give the,
Yourself grace
yourself grace.
more important because I think for a lot of people that and men you just think like I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this and you're
Yeah.
just like you have this separate standard for yourself and you have then for everybody else and you'll
Yeah.
give everybody else these cuts and you'll say like okay you didn't have it
Yeah.
you were off that day you
Absolutely,
were
man.
angry that day it's okay and then
Yeah.
you're just like I snapped at somebody like why the hell did I do that I'm a horrible person
Yeah.
and you're
And then
like
you
I
beat
can
yourself
never
up, right?
yeah and you're
Yeah.
just like you feel like you need to be perfect and then I think
A good meditation that I've been listening to recently talks about that. I can maybe share it later.
mhm
Um, but one of the things discussed is that many of us expect perfect outcomes, and for everything, in every category of life, we strive for perfection, and that goal and drive creates
mhm
a whole bunch of anxiety, because when you're within the path to the perfection state, many people are still jostling for that. Nobody has really attained it, in my
mhm
opinion. So, and maybe some people are okay with just always the grinding in every way, always trying to be the best version of yourself. But if you're
well I
if
think
you're not, so I'm not advocating for that. I've recently been personally trying to move away from it because I know I struggle with perfectionism to a certain degree.
well yeah there's a lot of that in me I think especially with this when we started out I was just like we don't care if it's perfect we just
Yeah,
got to start it
yeah, just got to get it
and
out there.
we'll add more along as we go along and we'll
Yeah,
hopefully do more
figure it
with
out as we
social
do it.
media and but at least we started we
Yeah,
did this instead of saying okay well we got to get all the socials now we got to do this now we got to do that we got to have a perfect setting we got to have this and I'm like
yeah,
okay so it's been 6 months and we haven't done anything at
yeah,
least we've recorded 7-8 episodes now
yeah,
and even if we stopped doing it right here, I feel like we've at least, tried.
yeah.
I don't want to stop here. I want to keep going and grow
But it's
this.
important to have made the effort. That's what you're
Mhm.
saying. And we can't wait for that perfect
Mhm.
moment before we start. I actually make a similar analogy to people
Mhm.
talking about parenthood and being set up for that. I was just talking to my cousin about
Mhm.
when is it right to have kids, and there's no perfect answer for that.
Mhm.
It's good to be prepared, but there's no perfect preparation.
Yeah, I
You could
mean,
read 100 books. You could have the perfect nursery. You could have you could study to be a midwife. You could do so many things.
mhm.
But you should know that many people who have prepared way less have
Yeah,
made
people who have not
kids.
prepared at all have
Yeah,
managed to go
they
through
have
it and
managed to make kids and kept them
succeed
alive and succeed.
and
And
have, kids who succeed themselves. So it's
yeah,
you got to get away from that. Everything is on me, and if I don't do it perfectly, then I have failed my place, and
yeah,
everybody else has held up their
yeah.
end of the bargain, but I
Do
haven't.
your best. So Sadhguru released one small clip today, and the general message
Mhm.
was just loosen the grip, have some fun.
Mhm.
Don't try to hold on to the reins so tight. Don't be so concerned about complete control when things happen outside of your control. Like, don't be
Well,
shitty about it.
Yeah, I think the
Um,
best you can do is if if you want to succeed at anything, or if you want to do a long-term project or do whatever, you got to find the fun
yeah,
in the moments. Otherwise,
yeah,
you're just droning on and, hitting your head against the wall.
yeah,
Like, maybe you don't have any fun at work, but you're making a lot of money, so it allows you to go to travel to Europe or something like
yeah,
that. Or it allows you to do a hobby that's really expensive and you wouldn't be able to do otherwise.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So,
Yeah,
I'm guessing you have one.
yeah. I have many expensive hobbies. Um,
I think my most expensive hobby is probably my gaming, because between the subscriptions for PlayStation and Xbox
yeah, I think big
and
picture
stuff
for
is
me
like,
for sure. Gaming long term, I've
mm-hmm.
spent thousands of dollars. I'm sure tens of thousands of dollars over the course of my life, because I've made some of that I've made back because I've sold it, and then I've like upgraded because like
Mm-hmm.
GameStop, you buy PlayStation and
Or
then you
PCs, yeah.
convert it to the PS2 with your
Mm-hmm.
trading and all that stuff. But I mean, still, and then all PCs I've made, and I've sold some of them, but I've kept some of them, so I'm sure it's been way too much.
But
But
then again,
tools, I mean, woodworking.
yeah, have you
Um,
done any woodworking in the past month?
yeah, I've been doing some wood carving.
Nice.
I'm really bad at it,
That's good.
but it's okay. It's definitely okay. I've been learning and enjoying the process. What I've been
Mm-hmm.
trying to do, I've been trying to carve a graveyard for Magic the Gathering because I just started playing Magic the
Oh, yeah.
Gathering,
Mm-hmm.
and you have a graveyard, and I like to have fun and make weird things. So I want to make a graveyard to where I can put my cards in there. And
Mm-hmm.
so I've been trying to carve out a graveyard from a single piece of wood.
Sure.
Versus, I could take boards and I could cut the boards and I could like
Make little
staple
figurines and
them
put
and
them
then,
together and
yeah,
on a piece, but you're trying to carve a whole scene out of one piece.
yeah.
All right.
And I keep destroying it because like I will meticulously just carve out little bit by bit, and
Mm-hmm.
then I'll take one kind of overly bold stroke and just like destroy one of the corners of the project because I'll go too
Mm-hmm.
far or I'll shear off too much in one specific angle, and
Ah,
then it's the decision of because it's not always okay the piece is ruined. There is an
maybe you
amount of
can.
glue that you
Mm-hmm.
can, you can just glue it, tape it, get it back together. But I've maybe done this 4 or 5 times, and I have destroyed all of them.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been a lot of fun. I'm learning some new techniques,
That's nice.
and I've been doing everything by hand, not a single power tool. Well, no, okay. So I tried to use a power tool once. Um,
Well, carving would be hard to use a power tool with. Or
No,
you
because
just.
what you can do is my idea was I could use a specific type of drill bit
Mm-hmm.
to remove a large amount of wood.
Oh, to get a.
So I can like drill certain areas and then chisel from there versus
Mm-hmm.
like because chiseling down, making kind of your first cut into an impression to carve out takes some
Mm-hmm.
time because you gotta basically make many passes
You
to get
should
out the
use
material.
on those things where you're trying to get too much. I don't know if they're really small sections or they're just like big sections and you hit it.
The problem is they make specialty tools for this,
Mm-hmm.
specialty hand tools,
And you don't have them.
and I don't have them because I threw away all my power tools, and then I'm reading the book on how to do everything by hand, but it's taking some time.
Well, yeah.
So in the interim, I'm just trying to chisel everything rather than have because there you can have like a hand router,
Mm-hmm.
which would probably be ideal for this. Um,
Oh yeah, don't you have like it's a little thing and then you just kind of like use your feet or whatever to press it to make it the hand router?
there are different versions that
Oh, okay.
incorporate your feet. Yeah.
Okay. I've seen one of those in like an old YouTube video about somebody who was like woodworking with
Yeah, absolutely.
or maybe it was actually on Home Improvement. I don't know. I love that show.
I did make one graveyard. It's just the template thing. So
Mm-hmm.
it's there, but I'm trying to make a better version of it.
Nice. Anyways, so
Yeah. What a segue.
what a segue. We can talk about something else, but how do we recognize that when we're like irrationally angry or
All boils
anxious?
back down to awareness. You have to be aware of when you're angry, and when you realize you're angry, because like the awareness should be like an invisible hat that you're always wearing. To be the observer, you must like turn it on. And in those states, and you can turn it on sometimes. It doesn't have to. Not everyone is in these states all the time. But when you recognize you're angry, become aware of the anger, and then try to figure out, okay, why am I angry? Is it situational? Is it because I've stubbed my toe? Or am I just shouting these angry words because I'm sad about something that I haven't unpacked?
Mm-hmm. And this little stub on my toe just pushed me over the
Yeah, just
edge.
push me over the edge.
Morning, I'm like,
Yeah.
instead of,
Yeah, like, or for people who are having relationship issues, like when your partner like leaves a dish out and you get
mm-hmm.
like irrationally upset, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like, hold on, do you really care about the dish,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe there is something that you need to talk about and you've been pushing it off, and you just need to have a heart to heart to get something off your chest,
Mm-hmm.
because
So
in my
yeah,
opinion, that's what like most relationship issues are.
no,
It's
yeah,
just
it's unresolved
communications
issues. People,
unresolved, and then those feelings turning into other things. Just like the man will hold on to the negative feelings, the man will also not say something that they want to say, and then
mm-hmm.
it will create some relationship tension down the line.
Mm-hmm. Or I think it's more likely that he just won't know that he's upset about something, and so that's you can't even address it because you don't know that that's why you're
Yeah,
angry. Because I think women
yeah,
do that too, where they get angry and then they just say I don't want to talk about it, or
yeah. Well, why not?
it's and so I think they know why they're angry, and maybe they just don't want to talk about it right then, and you just need to catch them at a better time. But sometimes
Yeah,
I'm talking about men who just plain don't
yeah,
know why they snap at somebody. It's like, oh, we're having pizza tonight. I don't want fucking pizza. I'm like, okay,
yeah,
that's not an appropriate reaction to that situation.
yeah. If somebody's that upset for getting pizza, I'm sorry, we're no longer friends.
Well, that's true because pizza's good in every situation.
Yeah. But no, you're absolutely right. There are the people that are constantly overreacting to everything.
And usually that's because maybe there's stress at work, maybe there's stress at home, maybe there's health stress, or, maybe there's anything else. Maybe a friend passed, or maybe somebody's struggling with illness.
Yeah.
There's a whole number of reasons why you could just be yelling at somebody for something stupid, and, it just you're acting almost on instinct before you can your brain can catch you, and then like
Yeah.
a minute or two later you're like,
Oh,
why?
yeah.
Like when you
There
think
are
about it, you're just like,
times.
why did I do that?
So that's when the subconsciousness takes over.
Mm-hmm.
Subconscious thought is ruling most people's minds.
Well, rules everybody's minds to an extent because you can't
They're
always be conscious of every single
well, I mean,
thing that's affecting you in every single
you're
moment
not
in
beating your
time.
heart. You're not really breathing. Um,
Well, yeah, those are autonomic things.
yeah, but there is a high level of control that
Oh, I'm not
you can
saying you
have.
can't control, but I mean, having control is exhausting, especially if there's a lot going on.
It won't be exhausting when there's nothing going on, and so there are ways that you can deal with the things going on. So like I'm just concerned about your viewpoint, thinking that it's so hard to attain.
I didn't say, I said total control
Total
is
control.
hard,
Oh,
is
okay.
near
Sure.
impossible to, and you're gonna snap at people, because you're thinking on one thing, but something else is in the background upsetting you, and you haven't
Yeah.
been
Well.
thinking about it at that moment,
Yeah.
and so
People really shouldn't be hyper threading, but a lot of people do. They're
well, I mean, it's also the fact that you have multiple things going on in your life, and
yeah.
yes, it would be nice if you could just shut your brain off the moment you, like, okay, I'm done with work. Shut it off. I'm not thinking about it at all.
Yeah.
But in reality, that's not true because maybe you'll be on call, or maybe
Well, you can't account for everything. If you want to shut it off, you can shut it off. The person who says that I want to shut it off isn't the person that's on call.
No, I'm just saying the stress is still there because you know you're going to go into work the next day.
It doesn't have to be.
I No, I mean it's still there. You can, lessen its effects on your body, but the fact that stressor, you go to work and you will still be stressed by that the next day, and that's in your body. And just because you're stressed throughout work from 8 to 3, and you come home, that doesn't mean you're automatically done with it.
Unstressed? Oh yeah, no.
You're still holding on to that, and maybe then you have to make sure the kids get this, and you can't necessarily let go and deal with stuff exactly when you need to deal with them. So it's not always a perfect thing, and you're not always going to be perfectly conscious of all of everything that's affecting you in every given moment.
Certainly. So you said it earlier. You can't do it necessarily right then. You maybe got some stuff to do. You can't sit there and be super sad when you're trying to plate dinner for your children.
Yeah.
You got to do that shit later.
But
or else you'll never be able to finish dinner.
Yeah, so I'm saying you can't be perfectly dealing with things every second, but you need to understand.
Yeah, and you don't need to. You don't need to be perfect all the time anyway.
You need to understand that these things exist there, and they need to be dealt with, or they're going to keep affecting you in this way. And sometimes you can't deal with them immediately. Sometimes work is just going to be stressful, and you have to just grin and bear it. But when you're done...
But you don't have to have that type of a job. You can
well,
have a
yeah,
job.
but,
you can change your work situation and have less stress.
Possibly. Maybe you have 3 kids and a wife who doesn't work, and maybe the kid has...
But you don't need to accept that situation, though. You can't just say the stressor will always be stress.
No, I didn't say the stressor will always be stress. I'm saying stress is there, and sometimes for certain periods you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And then you can do it later. I'm just saying, all I'm saying is the perfectness of always being mindful of stuff, unless you're like, a monk who's been trained to do that your entire life. It's not something you can expect
that dude's
of yourself.
Gonna sleep on a banana peel and just say expletive.
Yeah. So you got to give yourself the grace that you're not going to be able to deal with these things perfectly, but that you can work on them and get better, which is what I think you're getting at.
Yeah, absolutely. That's all I'm driving at.
Yeah, that you can get better at it, and that you can achieve a high level of mindfulness, but not a perfect level of mindfulness.
You don't need perfection anyway.
So you gotta know when and where you can do, what you can do and when you can do it with how you're feeling.
Yeah.
As a kid, it's easier. You just deal with your feelings when you have them because you're a kid and that's expected of you. But when you have responsibilities...
But it's also, I think, way better. It's way better that way.
Well,
if we could get back to that innocence to where...
Oh, it'd be great.
You have it, and then it's gone.
It's great, and I think the closer you can get to that, the better. But reality is, you are responsible, and there are things that have to be done, and you can't just, have a breakdown and cry in the middle of work for an hour.
Yeah.
You can't just do that. I mean, but you can go home and do that. So you're just going to have to be...
I can't.
Well, I mean, but okay, once kids go to sleep, then you could technically...
Then I
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the point is, there are certain things you can't do when you're at work. That, like, you can't break down and cry or whatever. You have to be professional.
No, you maybe shouldn't. I wouldn't say
okay,
can't.
not can't. I mean, if something really, truly...
Likely you shouldn't. You shouldn't, like, be bringing drama to work. You should be keeping that separate. I don't want...
So, I mean, even if things are stressing you out, and you're just stressed, I don't think, having a breakdown and crying is...
I would be willing to talk to one of my work friends, if they were stressed at work, though.
Oh, for sure. So, yeah,
but I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. Basically, it's like, hey, you were originally talking about just, like, bringing stuff home.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it would be better if you don't bring stuff home. Right? Mm-hmm. But you can't always not bring stuff home. So
I mean, sometimes it's physical. Like, you've been so stressed at work, your body is just already done by the time you get home.
there are practices that you can do to physically release stress, which are very attainable, doable. Breathing exercises, yoga, mindfulness moments, headspace applications. I'm just like trying to give listeners many things because we've been talking about maybe the negative sides of things, but there are so many different tools that are out there to help people equalize. And one of
Well,
my
again,
favorite
I
things.
think that's also you're kind of that's to get you through, but at some point you have to, you know, confront what's
No, but you're
stressing.
talking about two separate things here. You're talking about trauma, and you're talking about dealing with stress. All right. So you certainly deal with trauma, but also manage your stress. There's never going to be a time where you're not going to have stress. Um, so 100% deal with your traumas, manage your stress.
But I'm
Because
getting.
what you're talking about traumas that haven't been dealt with, that are keep coming back negatively, and which increase your overall stress levels. And then there's also work stress, and maybe those are somehow tied together because there are some overlapping trigger points. But you have to crush your trauma, or else you will never be at a
But you,
position
you also
of
have to.
stresslessness.
Yeah, you also have to realize that the stress from work or whatever is, sometimes what's affecting you in a moment when you snap at others or
Sure.
when you're doing that. So you
Yeah.
have to, sometimes you can't fully extricate yourself from these things that are causing you to be anxious or are, upset. And you just have to be cognizant that it's going to affect you. And then if you do something like that, you gotta, say, you know what, I'm stressed or I'm upset. I'm sorry that I did
Yeah.
that. And you have to be a little bit more. You can't just take it and then expect not to be affected by things.
Yeah.
You have to know why you're being affected in order to properly manage things and, be fair to other people.
Yeah.
So that's more what I'm getting at, is trying to understand when and where things are coming from, because everybody does that where they react to something and they're just like 5 minutes later they're just like, why did I do that?
Yeah.
And you're just like, you got to think about it. And if
Think
you have
before you act. Think before you speak.
mm-hmm.
Many people are operating subconsciously. Um, and when you are aware and thinking about your words before you say them,
Mm-hmm.
then you can stop the whole mouth vomit thing or the word vomit thing that many people do. And sometimes this behavior gets people into trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you just got to be aware, and you got to be able to have somebody to talk to. And it's good to have multiple people to talk to, because sometimes you're going to have an issue with one of the people you normally talk to, and you can't talk to them directly until you sort what you're thinking about or feeling, and then somebody else, and then you can come back to the person and say, okay, you know what? I was upset at work. Somebody was trying to, get me in trouble, and I was thinking about that, and I snapped at you, and yes, I'm upset you didn't get this thing from the store that I asked you to, but I realized, like, that wasn't why I was that angry.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So once you can do that, I think you can more properly communicate, because if you don't know what you're feeling, how can you communicate to somebody effectively and give them a chance to, work with you instead of just shutting down because they don't know why you're doing what you're doing. You don't know why you're doing what you're doing. They don't know why what they're doing, and everybody's just upset because they don't know why anything's happening.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big thing, to be aware of why we do what we do. Is easier to mitigate, anger issues among men, or depression or anxiety issues, to know where is this coming from, instead of just creating more issues because you're shitty to other people, because you're, depressed or sad, and you
Yeah.
can't show it. So that's where I'm getting with it. You have to be able to know where it's coming from, and not try and hide from it, because a lot of people, when you have stuff that you don't want to deal with, you'll throw up anything and everything under the sun
Oh
to
yeah.
avoid it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I see it in my children's behavior.
I see it in my behavior.
Yeah.
I see it in plenty.
Anything else.
Yeah, and
Literally anything else.
so, and it's hard to know how deep that goes. Like how like deep down the rabbit hole are you gonna go to avoid dealing with the things that really sting?
The only way that you will deal with it is talking to somebody who is trained to do it. This is a very important segue that we should bring into the podcast. Anyone who is having issues dealing with these things needs to talk to a professional.
Talk to a professional. Talk to a friend.
Go
I
to
think.
go to therapy. Establish a cadence. Even if you don't think you have trauma, you probably do.
Well, even if you don't have trauma, just having somebody to talk to
Yeah.
when you need an outsider's perspective on something. Am I really being an irrational jackass, or if this, really
Yeah.
something that needs to be worked through? So I think men need to talk to each other more, so they have a bit more perspective on what is acceptable, and I'm like, okay, why am I blowing up like this and nobody else is? Okay, maybe I have some issues I need to deal with.
Yeah.
And then maybe you'll meet somebody who will know, like, oh yeah, I used to blow up everybody all the time, and now I just kind of like, sometimes I'll take 20 minutes between like activities, or 5 minutes, and I'll do this, and I'll be able to be 20% less anger.
Sure.
And so
Numbers.
and I think that's another thing, like, people are social. That's how we get better at things, is by talking to each other. You keep it all in, and you're the only one attacking these things and working at them.
There's so much there to be valued for simply
Exchange
articulating a thought, or exchanging information with someone, because through the process of communicating with someone, you're saying it out loud. It's giving you a chance to really fully understand even your own thoughts.
Yeah,
and then they can help you kind of understand your own viewpoint, maybe help you, because some people are doing things that they don't even understand why they're doing it, and then they're talk to somebody else and they'll be like, oh, maybe this, and help you understand it.
Yeah, throwing one pair of eyes at a problem can miss the solution for 10 years, and you put 10 people on it and you can solve it in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's always good to have talk to multiple people about things, and therapy is great. And I've been in therapy a few times throughout my life. Medication is good if you need it, and there's just no other alternative, and you have to grin and bear through
definitely
something.
Times to take medication, and that's completely okay, because our bodies do get into cycles. Sometimes they're releasing terrible chemicals just from their own machinations. I would also advocate for non-medicative means, but certainly if you need it,
well, yeah,
without even feeling guilty at all, because if it can get you from being just having those feelings, just having a break from those feelings helps you then reframe where you are and help you articulate how you got there, and then you can make some small actions over time to not need the medication. I've gone through a similar journey, where I was put on medication, and then I basically figured out that I didn't like it, but I dealt with the things that I needed to deal with, so I no longer needed that medication. I mean, personally, I probably self-medicate too much for other reasons, but that's a different conversation. And so I find some of the practices that I do are also borderline addictive behavior. I was talking to my brother about this and how I Wim Hof all the time. And then we talked about how it actually has tangible health benefits. And then we also followed up with, okay, so maybe it's okay. The difference between, let's say, a practice, which you do all the time, and an addiction may be negative effects. Or it's certainly something that you can debate. But it's like, and then so we were just
Well, I think an addiction is like, a compulsion. And I mean, an addiction to exercise, so long as it doesn't negatively affect you, like you're like, oh no, I sorry honey, I can't deal with the kids
It
right now,
can.
I need to go running. And you're just like, well, I'm sorry, but this comes
Yeah,
first.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So,
That's a poor excuse. Yeah, you could take care of your kids. If you wanted to run and take care of your kids, you could do it at the same time. Get a running
well,
stroller.
that's what I'm saying is,
Yeah.
if an addiction, I think, is only really a thing when important things
It's holding
uh,
you back from like
um,
important things in your
in
life.
life.
Yeah. And not necessarily just holding yourself back from important things. It's something which you must, that you feel like you must do.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I think that gets a little murky into what addiction really is, because I think that's more of a, chemical thing. Whereas, like, if you think, well, I got to wake up every morning and go for a run, and that's, how you start your day,
Also a
like
chemical thing.
a ritual. But it can also be like a ritual. That's what you do.
Yeah.
Like, before you go to bed, you brush your teeth, then you read for 10 minutes, then you turn off the light, and
Yeah,
then.
ritual is different than addiction for sure.
So I don't.
Because I know brushing my teeth isn't an addiction.
Yeah.
Um,
So there's things we do every day, and I don't think exercise is an addiction unless it's like,
some
oh, your
people
mom.
are addicted to it though, for sure.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, it's like, oh, you're not going to
It
your
can be
mother's.
addictive, or
Well,
you
yeah,
can.
most things can be addictive if if you do it to the point of like
Yeah,
absurdity. Like, you're going to
yeah,
the gym for 6 hours a day every day, and you
yeah.
can't take one day off to go to your mother's
Funeral or I
funeral
don't know.
or operation or something.
Yeah,
Then there's a problem.
yeah.
And I don't even know. Yeah, like, you can use certain things, like you can drink or you can, smoke pot, and I don't think you're addicted necessarily. But, when you are drinking every day or you're smoking every day, then it becomes more of an issue.
Yeah.
And it's like, and if it, precludes you from doing something where you're just kind of like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's just like I'm aware that I do it, and it does help me avoid dreaming because I've done many things in the attempt to not have nightmares, and I still have them. But
Yeah, I had an Inception
THC
one.
helps suppress dreams.
Well, that's a different monster altogether.
Yeah, that's just a different monster. So it's
That's like medication. That's not like addiction. That's just like,
Yeah.
okay, I to get restful sleep, I need to do something. Otherwise, I'm gonna be waking up every
Yeah.
30 minutes in terror. So
Yeah.
yeah. But anyways, that's addiction.
Yeah,
and
we
that's
digress.
another thing.
Yeah.
We should probably do a whole episode on, because I'm probably addicted to food. And yeah, but I think it's been about an hour, I think.
Yeah.
So we want to thank you for joining
Thank you
us
very
again.
much.
And hopefully we're going to do some socials and be here next Monday at 4
Central.
p.m. Central Time. Central
right.
Standard. So
Have a good one, everyone.
join us, please.